Namaskar and welcome. I'm your host Pune. Today we have with us a leader whose journey is truly inspiring, Mr. Ashish Chand, the global CEO of Belden. From his roots in India to leading a global technology powerhouse, Ashish Chand represents resilience, innovation and leadership. Belden, with over 120 years of legacy, has always believed in one idea: connect to what's possible. In India, Belden is strengthening its vision with its campaign Invested in India's Tomorrow, building the connections that unlocks opportunities for industries, for enterprises and for communities. And in this conversation, we'll explore Ashish Chand's personal journey, his leadership philosophy and Belden's role in shaping India's digital and industrial transformation. Thank you so much for speaking with us here. I want to begin by asking you, your journey from India to the global stage to now being the global CEO. How was that journey like? Were there some defining moments you would want to talk us about?
Yeah. First of all, Poonam, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here at CNBC TV 18. If I think about the moments or turning points in my journey, first of all, I grew up in India. My father was a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force, so as a result, we moved around to many different parts of the country. So there was always this openness to new places and new ideas that came out of that. And then I think an important turning point for me was post my MBA, which was at XLR at Jamshedpur. I went and worked for a public sector oil and gas company, which a lot of people didn't expect I would do. But as it turned out, that was a great decision because working there, I really got some perspective on how to handle large projects with large investments. And then how do you bring a lot of discipline in terms of process to a very large organization that's spread across the country with thousands of people. And I think that's always helped me in my journey going forward. The next turning point for me was in 2009. I'd already been at Beldon for 7 years at that point. And I was asked to relocate to Hong Kong, China, and really focus on turning around a business that we'd acquired, which wasn't doing very well. Carving that business into two pieces and then divesting one of those pieces. And this is a very complex undertaking, also because it was a new place and a new culture, but just those three things by themselves were fairly difficult to achieve. And I think that's something that was a really important learning point for me. And of course, China itself, you get exposed to a lot of scale and scope in how things are done, and that's an exciting learning opportunity, especially if you go from India. And then finally, in 2020, I relocated to the US. And the US is a very interesting market or economy or area. The US is, by the way, 4% of the world's population, 27% of the world's GDP, and over 60% of the world's capital. So it's very interesting to see how deep the sources of capital are and how they find their way to the latest innovations. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I live in Palo Alto, and I'm always amazed to see, first of all, the diversity of the people who arrived there, and then the exciting innovative things they're doing. So these, I think, were my 4 defining moments. Growing up in India, working in an oil and gas PSU in India, moving to Hong Kong, China, and then finally moving to the US. And I think my message to people who want to emulate this kind of journey is that just be open to new ideas and new risks. Do something scary regularly. You don't have to do it every day, but please be open to doing it often.
You spoke about your roots in India, and I want to talk about that a little further. Also, the kind of background that you came with. We were talking about this earlier, that you come in from an forces background, so you've traveled a lot across the country as well. Do you think your roots in India, your experiences in India have helped you how you lead a global organization, be at the helm of an organization like Belden?
Yeah, I think there are some things that are inherent to those of us that have grown up in India. First of all, we don't like to waste things, right? We don't like to see wastage around us. So we always look for efficiency and we look for solutions to problems. we also have a lot of respect for expertise and experience, or respect for knowledge. That's inherent to us. And we do believe in a strong family situation, right? So we really rely on our spouses and partners. We really rely on our family. And if I think of some of those things, they then fundamentally guided me, at least, to somehow dealing with cross-cultural challenges. One of the biggest challenges a manager faces going out of any country is just cross-cultural assimilation. And but if you think of how we grow up in India, because we have a natural respect for expertise and experience, we listen more intently. We try not to waste people's time. We try to bring efficiency to our work. So I think all of those things really help. And I will say that having a good partner or a spouse is really important, because sometimes when you take on these challenges, life gets tough, right? You have to really balance and draw boundaries between work and life. And I think, so all of those, I think, help. I will also say here, Poonam, that there are certain habits that we bring which are also not very, let's say, helpful when you're dealing in a global context. So, for example, we sometimes tend to rationalize a lot more when we don't get the results. And one thing I've learned is it's better to be brief. It's better to under-promise and over-deliver versus figuring out a very extensive way to rationalize why one failed, right? So I think that's something we can learn from cultures overseas. And then the last thing I would say here is sometimes we tend to be emotional versus showing empathy. And these are two different things, right? Empathy is helpful because you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes, support them, even criticize them.
Correct.
Emotional reactions can be hyperbolic. They seem good, but they don't help a lot, right? And these are things we can learn as we think about cross-cultural management.
And speaking of that cross-cultural management, you've worked across continents, I wouldn't say even countries, continents. How do you think that has changed your leadership style over the years that you have worked in several of these other countries spanning these continents?
I think initially, when I started working overseas, I had the sense of confidence that I came from India and I knew a lot. And there's a certain exposure to technology, and we have this feeling that there's a certain Indian genius at work. And I realized soon that that confidence may have been seen as arrogance or even kind of aggression. And I realized that I had to tone it down to being assertive, right? So it's really about saying, I believe that this is one way to do things, versus saying, I know that this is the only way to do things. And so really working across different continents and cultures, the first thing is you kind of tone that down, you become more assertive, you make sure that confidence is channeled correctly. I think the other thing is, technically, there are different problems that different countries have solved. So for example, in Germany, they have solved problems around automation and robotics very well. In the US, they've solved problems around highway networks and transportation very well, and telecoms. In Australia, they've solved other kinds of problems. And you kind of realize that the way you think about solutions, there are better ways to solve those problems even in India. And there's really a lot of technical learning possible as you work across these continents.
Sure. So there's a learning curve for everyone. I mean, clearly learning doesn't stop at any age or at any position that you're at. We've spoken of certain opportunities and certain challenges that you've faced as well. But is there anything particular that you would want to talk about? Any challenge that you had to face, which at the time seemed like a big one, But now in hindsight, you realize that that did shape the journey of getting you where it got you?
Yeah, when I first arrived in Hong Kong, uh, since I was sent in to turn around and potentially divest a part of the business, obviously the reception I received by, from the team there was not very warm. They were testing me, they were watching me, and I kind of thought that they should give me respect for my title. And I realized very quickly that in a number of different cultures, respect is for the individual and their credibility comes from knowledge versus if they had a business card saying my title is X, right? And that was an important learning step for me because the first few months I did not do very well at the job. I was not able to get information and support from the local team, and I really had to show them that they could trust me and that I was not going to misuse the information they provided against them. And that seems like an obvious thing when I say it now, but at that point in time, it was very difficult. The other thing I realized is, at least in that context in Hong Kong, they really respect age. I was rather young at that point in time when I showed up there as the leader. And, at some level, when young people become leaders, they have even more kind of confidence or, arrogance in that situation. And I really, learned how to take a step back. So at many company events and meetings, I would not even speak. I learned to just keep quiet and stay back and promote, the views of other people. So that was a tough point for me. I literally at one point thought I might have to leave that job because it wasn't going very well. But it turned around pretty quickly once I started doing these things, and then it became a success story.
So then would that be your word of advice to young leaders who want to see that path for themselves happen more quicker than traditionally would be seen as?
I would give, I would say that, but I would give maybe a little more context. I think in any organization, there are two kind of groups of people. One that wants the credit and one that wants to do the work. And I would say it's always better to be in the second queue because it's shorter. There are more people waiting to take credit and there are fewer people waiting to do the work. So if you join the second queue, you probably get noticed faster. So that's one. I think the second thing is try to be brief. Don't over-rationalize or over-explain. Respect other people's capability to understand and ask questions if they need to, versus trying to explain to people as if you were condescending, right? So yeah, I think those are things I would certainly, if somebody asked me for advice, that's what I would say.
Before we move on to Beldon and its growth and role here in India, I want to ask you this one thing. Is there one particular mantra or philosophy that guides you, that has guided you as a manager, now as a CEO, as a leader as a whole?
Yeah. I think that all strategy is execution and execution is strategy. And let me explain that. So there are many organizations that have very complicated strategic plans that are not well communicated because they're kept confidential and they are not executed. So in my opinion, anything that is not executed is actually not strategy. It just happens to be a theoretical construct or a concept, right? So when I want to see what a company's strategy is, I don't want to go to the boardroom. I want to go and talk to some of the middle and lower management, and what they are doing is actually the company's strategy. So I think this is my kind of my leadership concept. I think your strategic plan should be such that you should even be able to explain it to a competitor, and they shouldn't be able to completely emulate you because you've built your plan using non-financial barriers to entry like capabilities and culture, and they can't build those overnight. So we should be very transparent with our strategy, and that's the only way to make sure that everybody understands it and they're all marching in the same direction.
That's important for everybody to be on the same page and believe in that one particular goal that you're aiming at, and which brings me to Beldon and the goal that it eventually wants to achieve. You know, Beldon's been around for a century now, but what do you think makes it a trustworthy name, a force to reckon with even now, despite the changing times, despite the changing narratives that we've seen?
Yeah, so Beldon started in 1902, and we've been around for a very long time. I think the one thing that Beldon always stood for is very high quality and reliability. So no matter what we did, it was just the best quality. We were not always the first to market with something, but we were always the best to market with something. And as a result, we got pulled into all sorts of exciting programs like, you know, the Apollo program with NASA. We got pulled into some of the early communication satellites. We got pulled into TV transmission technology. We got pulled into AI data centers. So it's that reliability that's kept us relevant for such a long time. And the second thing which comes as part of that is we are problem solvers. So we don't necessarily say to customers that this is what we have and you have to consume it. We literally ask people, what are you going to do with your data when it moves from point A to point B? And can we solve problems for you in terms of how you will use that data? And that, again, seems like a simple thing to do, but a lot of companies don't do that. Most companies go and say, this is what we have, find a way to use it. And I think we've survived and thrived for 120 years because we've had very high quality. We've had a very focused approach towards customer problems. And I also think we just are, the people at Beldon are very nice people. So we are very warm, friendly, nice people. And that's part of our secret sauce.
But has this been a challenge as well, you know, to keep, to ensure that there is customization for every single consumer, every single client that you would have, and not necessarily, like you said, that this is what we have, take it and figure it out. For you to be that kind of person to say that, okay, this is your problem and we'll try a solution for it, has that been challenging over the years?
Yeah, so Poonam, you've actually hit the nail on the head. This is, in fact, our biggest strategic challenge and opportunity. So we are very good at customizing solutions for different customers. It could be a mass transit customer like, for example, the Delhi Metro, or it could be, a customer like a hospital network or a data center. And we do a really, really fine job in customizing a solution for the entire data connectivity. So, we go all the way from data acquisition to data transmission to data orchestration to data management. So we do a full end-to-end solution. However, unless we can scale that, it's a problem. We can't grow as a company and we can't touch more customers, and our resources are getting used up. So really, our entire strategy at this point is we've proven we can do solutions. Now we need to prove that we can scale them. And the way to think about this is that the data map for any customer in a particular vertical is actually very similar to the data map for another customer. So the data map for the Hilton Hotel and the data map for the Marriott Hotel are not different,
Sure.
Even though the hotels look different, right? So we've now started using some advanced tools to build what we call common reference architecture. So this is architecture for data fabric architecture for every vertical. And so our strategy now is to really build a repository of solutions that people can query using our own internal AI models. And we can create, with a minimal tweak, we can create a new solution in a matter of hours rather than months. So these are exciting times for us. Now, this is also a bit of a learning curve for Beldon because, our people are used to doing very customized solutions. But if we can solve this challenge, then we could really become a much bigger company.
And speaking of achieving greater heights, where does India figure in all of that? India, I believe, is central to where Beldon eventually aims to go?
I think there are three parts of the India opportunity for us, right? First of all, India is a really big market. And if I think about some of the specific opportunities in India, there's this whole transportation upgrade that's going on, in terms of mass transit, railways, airports, ports, etc. It's interesting, I see islands of excellence, but I see an overall network that needs to be upgraded even more, right? So you can see that, DMRC is a very high quality metro, but then you see when you look at the broader railway network, you see opportunities for improvement, right? So getting consistency across that is important. Another opportunity for us is in the power generation, actually more importantly in the distribution space. So in fact, you might know this, but India is surplus in terms of power generation, but it's at a deficit because a lot of that gets leaked during the transmission and distribution process.
Right.
So there are inefficiencies in the network that need to be plugged. So I think there are very important market opportunities in terms of infrastructure. I think over the next 5 years, it will also migrate to smart manufacturing and robotics, which is not yet happening in India as much as, for example, in China, but it's a matter of time. So that's one piece of the India opportunity. I think the second piece of the India opportunity is really the talent. In terms of, how can we leverage this talent, whether it's in India or whether we export that talent to other places. But Indian managers, Indian workers are really very highly skilled, and it's difficult to find people with those levels of skill and enthusiasm to work for us in different parts of the world. And then finally, India has also become our largest engineering location. So we are building a lot of our advanced software as well as new hardware products in India, specifically in Pune and Bangalore right now. And we find that the speed of innovation out of our Indian engineering center is actually almost, I would say, 2 times what we get out of other centers. So there's a lot of opportunity. I will say though that there's also room for improvement. So what I see with India is a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, but not enough experience. And I think this is where Beldon can come in. We have 123 years of experience. So we can come in and help customers, we can help our own people in India in terms of improving how they do things, but really harnessing all that energy.
So channeling that is really important, and that's where Beldon would come in. And you spoke about Pune and Bengaluru, so I want to talk about the Pune plant that just came up. Of course, it's important for the company, for Beldon. So A, why is that important? That's part one of my question.
Right.
And part two of my question would be, why is that significant for you personally?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, it was very important for us to have a hub in India that was, we could really localize for our sales in India. So India is the fastest growing market in terms of revenues. And at this point, only about half of what we sell in India is locally manufactured. So we wanted to make sure that we improve that. So with Pune Plant 1, we reached that half. And now with Pune Plant 2, we expect to take that to that 80-90% of localization. So that was important. Second, we wanted to harness the high quality manufacturing in India. By the way, our plant in Pune right now has, it's in the top decile in terms of output KPIs across our entire plant network across the world. And this is a young plant, but they're doing very well on quality, on delivery, on safety. So India will, in the coming quarters, years, we will also manufacture for Europe out of this facility. So those were the two kind of objectives for that plant. Personally, it's an interesting question. Many years ago, I had actually proposed to the Belden management that we should build, and this is before I was in my current role, that we should build a plant in India. And I don't want to say that they were skeptical, but they were not convinced. And their concern was around quality, reliability, etc. So they said, we're not sure whether very high quality mission critical products that are used in nuclear power plants and train systems can be made in India. And I'm very glad that we proved them wrong, right? And of course, with due respect to them, I learned a lot from those people who used to be my managers. But I think personally, it's a very sweet, I would say victory for me and for the team at Beldon now that clearly there is no doubt that manufacturing in India is very sophisticated.
So would that be taken another step ahead in India? Any more expansion plans?
I think the way we are going right now, I have a feeling that we may not need to build another facility in the short term, but we are deciding to bring even more sophisticated products for manufacturing into India. Products that we had not even thought we would bring in, let's say, 6 months ago, we hadn't considered that. But really, looking at what the team has achieved here, that's going to happen.
Sure. So let's talk about the global role of Beldon. And I would say we're in tricky times as far as India and the United States go, at least at the moment. How do you see those business relations between the two countries evolving? If any role that Beldon could play in it, what do you see that role that could be?
I think the US and India have had a very long relationship, first of all. And I think, in any relationship, even, for example, in families, there are high points and low points, right?
Sure.
And these things happen. The good news is that the issues that the relationship is facing right now are not vague. So both sides have clearly articulated some things that need to be addressed versus saying, well, we're upset with you, but we won't tell you why, right? Which is, it's kind of unclear then how do you solve that problem. So I think we have on the table a lot of clarity in terms of what both sides want. And I think companies like Beldon can certainly play a role on certain aspects of that, right? Obviously, we don't get involved in the politics or the defense aspects of it, but just in terms of the commercial and technology aspects, we can really accelerate knowledge transfer between India and the US and vice versa, right? So for example, when we build new software in India and we use that in the US, that's one way of doing that, right? So I think as the US learns that there's going to be more and more development in India that's going to create value for them, and vice versa, as India learns that there are certain sophisticated products and technologies that India doesn't make at this point, and they need to be brought in, and over time that could change. I think as long as that mutual understanding is created, and we can certainly play a very big role in that, I think that's going to be very productive. And I see real opportunities on the ground right now where we are engaged, for example, in the energy sector, in the communication sector, where customers are telling us that they really do need that technology. One of the big problems, Poonam, right now in industry is that industrial customers have different IT systems and different OT or operational technology systems, and they don't talk to each other. And the processes by which these can be made to talk, those IT/OT converged technologies are being developed globally and not just in India. And I think India has to acknowledge that they need that to come in to improve efficiency, to reduce wastage, to reduce accidents in different parts of the network. And I see the customers really asking for that technology. And I really hope that we can convince some of the policymakers, and I think they will understand that this will lead to a better outcome for India.
So it's just a short-term challenge, but a long-term opportunity? Would you look at it that way?
I think so. One of the things I tell people when I speak with young people is that we always overestimate what we can do in the short term, and we underestimate what we can do in the long term, right? And we kind of get disappointed in the short term if things don't move as per our plan. But when you look back, after a decade, for example, you would have achieved a lot. And I think that's the story here for the India and US.
And we really do hope that we get there at some point and we have that foresight for it. But I want to finally ask you this. What excites you most for the next chapter, both for Beldon as the man at the helm of Belden, and of course for you personally as well?
Yeah. One of the things I will acknowledge here is that Beldon's a very interesting company that is based in the Midwest. So it's not really a IT company based in the Bay Area, right? Its heart is in the Midwest manufacturing belt of the US. And you hear of a lot of overseas or immigrant CEOs, Indian CEOs in the Bay Area, but Beldon's not one of those companies, and they still gave an opportunity to someone like me. So we've been around for 123 years. We've had 10 CEOs in that duration, and I'm number 10 actually. And I think this speaks to how open this company is, how open-minded this company is. And the whole idea that customers across the world are moving from what we call digitization, getting connected at a base level, to automation, taking certain processes and making them more autonomous, to finally IT/OT convergence, where two systems can talk to each other directly and produce an outcome. This journey is something that Beldon is uniquely positioned to enable. And interestingly, this is also the journey that India is on right now. So I think really I want to see this company becoming even more global. I was talking to some of my younger colleagues in Pune, and I said, well, one of the future CEOs of Beldon can come out of this office. And I think that's the kind of culture we want to create, where anybody can really aspire to any position. And we can solve a lot of problems for the world by gently persuading them to adopt these new technologies. So yeah, that's kind of my vision. I think we want to remain relevant for another 120 years by doing this.
And we do hope that those 120 years continue to be far more than that. And good luck to you for that endeavor. And thank you so much for speaking with us here, sharing your vision and, of course, your journey of how you got here.
Thank you, Poonam. Great questions.
Thank you. What stands out is not only Beldon's commitment, though, to invested in India's tomorrow, but also the personal inspiration that Ashish Chand's story brings. It is inspiring to see how Beldon, under his leadership, is not just building connectivity solutions, but is also investing in India's future, in India's people, in its innovation and its industry. Your leadership does remind us that better connections truly unlock possibilities, and Beldon's promise to connect to what's possible reflects that spirit. Thank you so much, and we wish you and Beldon the very best.
Thank you.